For the past 4 years, I've been involved in research around parent knowledge. While there's a large body of research in the field on teacher knowledge, there's no corresponding body of literature on parent knowledge. And as I continue to look at the place and the voice of parents in school, it strikes me that parents, just as educators are holders of a lot of knowledge about children, about teaching and learning. In this presentation for Circle of Light, a First Nations, Métis and Inuit Education Conference sponsored by the Ontario Ministry of Education and Indian and Northern Affairs Canada, the focus was to really talk about what is parent knowledge, how is it held and used. The research for this study has been funded by SSHRC, the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada, and it's basically asked two key questions. What is parent knowledge? And as I said earlier, how is it held and used? So for this research, I spent time in the homes of 3 parents or parent partners for a period of a year to really talk to them about their family, their lives as parents, and to come to understand the knowledge they hold because they are parents. So often when we invite parents to help us in the school, we ask them to bring their professional knowledge or their craft knowledge. You're a nurse, you could come and talk to us about immunization. You're a dental hygienist, you could come and talk to the kids about brushing their teeth. What we want to do when we access parent knowledge is access the knowledge that parents gain from being parents, living in the complex context of a home with children, with schedules, with perhaps pets, with perhaps after-school activities, and say, how do they come to know children? How do they come to know teaching and learning from this environment? The parent knowledge work draws on Clendenin and Connolly's conceptualization of personal practical knowledge. So personal knowledge is knowledge that comes from all of our lived experiences, from our past, from our present, from everything we do in life, from what we read, from who we know. Practical knowledge, when they talk about it in relation to teachers, comes from teachers' practice in a classroom, how they learn about curriculum, teaching, instructional strategies, children, from what they do in that classroom. When I think about personal practical knowledge of parents, then I see a very strong parallel. In this particular session, I shared analysis from field text with one of the parents in the parent knowledge study. Red is an Aboriginal parent, a First Nations parent. Red is the pseudonym he's chosen to name himself in this study. What I spent a lot of time in the session doing was really talking to some of the threads that came out of our analysis. What is his knowledge? How do we start to see Red as a holder of knowledge and what knowledge that might be? Some of those threads were intimate knowledge of children. As a parent, Red knows his children in ways that no one else can know them. He spends time from birth onwards, spends time in all kinds of moments, all kinds of times, and comes to know his children in intimate ways. So we begin to ask questions then about how his knowing of his children could add to what teachers might know of his children in a classroom. We also see a sense of the intimate teaching that Red does with his children. In a classroom of 30 children, teachers teach a lesson to a broad group. They teach it from the curriculum. They teach it trying to keep a number of interests in mind. When Red teaches his children, it's often one-on-one. It's specific. It's in response to a context, and it's immediate. So his teaching may be in response to something that happened in their family in regard to a social skill development. It might be in regard to helping them with their homework. But it happens in a very different kind of moment. Yet when we look at it and pull it apart, we see all of the elements of teaching that we might see in a school context as well. We see rhythms and cycles and routines that are established in the home and Red's knowledge of all of those. How the year is organized for the family, how the week is, how the day is, as he talks about homework times, as he talks about household responsibilities, as he talks about the rhythm of their family. We see all kinds of knowledge that Red holds. Something very strongly that comes through in Red's situation, different than some of the other parents that I worked with in this study, is his own sense of identity. As a First Nations individual, Red makes statements such as, I am brown, I was born brown, I'm Indian first. That sense of identity is a very foundational piece of Red's parent knowledge, a sense of how he does what he does with his own children and why. He wants them to grow up knowing who they are and being proud of who they are. When Red talks about cultural knowledge, how when the boys get their hair cut, they'll burn that hair so that the smoke goes up to the Creator, and also as a way to protect the identity of those individuals, we see how much his parenting reflects his own cultural knowledge. One of the key pieces that has come out in the analysis is that each of the families that I worked with had often unconscious and often unnamed principles to live by, but ones that came through strongly in so many decisions they made as a family. Red often said to me, "I follow the red road." It was really important to him that he raise his children to be individuals who understood their First Nations background, who were proud of it, who participated in feasts and pipe ceremonies and sweats and cultural activities. So many decisions that he made as a parent were often tied back to this principle by which he lived. There's such richness in Red's parent knowledge, things he knows that educators can't and don't know about his specific children, but about teaching in that intimate context as well. There's many things that he knows very differently than educators. So the question that we're asking here then is, when we lay Red's parent knowledge alongside the knowledge of his children's teachers, what better decisions could we make for their programming? How much enhanced could their school experiences, their learning, and the other educational outcomes be if Red was able to share his knowledge alongside teacher knowledge in the schooling of his children?